Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. I'm really loving these Dan Snow just food trying videos. World War One or World War II rations. Just a bunch of different stuff of Victorian era food. What did the Georgians eat at a dinner party? So 1700s? I know pineapples are a really big status symbol, and sometimes they wouldn't even eat it and just keep it. I think. Let's go. The original link to the video, top of the description. Right below that, link to the Discord. We'd love to have you. Let's go, shall we?
Oh. I'm getting a bit worried about Georgian gut health, to be honest.
Meat pie.
Sweetbreads sound so nice and delicate, but in fact, they're awful.
It's like dog. I mean, surely it looked a bit better before, right?
Hi, I'm the extremely eligible Dan Snow with 1,000 a year to my name, and tonight I'm a guest at a Georgian dinner party.
The Georgian era was a period in British history from 1714 to 1837, named after the four Hanoverian kings, George I, George II, George III, and George IV.
Well, shoot, I asked this in a different video. Didn't they change it from Hanover to Windsor during World War I, or am I wrong?
It was a time of great change for the nation. It saw Britain establish itself as an international power at the centre of an expanding empire. This expansion, combined with the impact of the Industrial Revolution, led to an increase in wealth and the creation of a middle class keen to show off just how much money they had. And a good way for them to do this was by hosting parties and serving luxury goods and food items, ideally from British territory around the world. Formal dinners and balls were popular as a way both to show off one's wealth and for men and women to meet and mix with each other in a time when relations between the genders were restricted. This is the Georgian era that we know so well from Jane Austen, period dramas like Bridgerton. But what would middle-class guests at a Georgian dinner party have actually been eating? Let's find out.
There's a variety of cold cuts and meat pies, plus a sumptuous platter of white soup, a staple of the period. The delightful bowl of sweetbreads, or as you and I would call them, offal. And to finish, a bite of juicy pineapple fresh from the tropics.
A Georgian dinner party was quite a do. The tables would have been groaning with food, several courses and different dishes in each course. Guests who sat down would have soup, meat, game, pickles, jellies, vegetables, custards, puddings, perhaps 5 dishes, perhaps 25, depending on the grandeur of the occasion. Now, of course, for a country that was constantly at war with France in the 18th century, French food was the height of fashion, and you had to have a French chef, darling. You can tell a lot about Georgian sensibilities and food from reading Jane Austen. She creates a character in Pride and Prejudice called Mrs. Bennet, who is hyper socially aware. This is what she had to say about the food at one of her neighbours' parties. The soup was 50 times better than what we had at the Lucases last week, and even Mr. Darcy acknowledged that the partridges were remarkably well done. And I suppose he has 2 or 3 French cooks at least.
Austen teaches us that dinner parties in the Georgian era were less about making guests feel comfortable and feeding them excellent food, and more about status and
Just showing
one-upmanship.
what you have. Whoa.
White soup was to a Georgian do what punch is to a frat house party. White soup was meat stock, egg yolk, ground almonds, cream, occasionally a bit of bacon, and it was served. Stock, egg punch is to a frat house party. White soup was meat stock, egg yolk, ground almonds, cream, occasionally a bit of bacon, and it was served at balls. Let's give it a go. Gamey. It's gamey soup, if you can believe that. It fortifies you, though. You could tell you'd be ready for a whole night on the dance floor after.
Guys, what do people mean by gamey? Like gamey as in the taste of meat from hunted animals rather than from domesticated animals? Is that what it means?
That. Jane Austen says that white soup was so important that a ball was virtually impossible without it. One of her characters planning a party says, "As for the ball, it's quite a settled thing. And as soon as Nichols has made enough white soup, I shall send round my cards. No white soup, no party." Here we go. Oh, big bit of chicken. The thing about these white foods is that, like with flour and sugar, they were historically considered, well, status symbols because they were more expensive. They needed refining, processing, and therefore they were lighter and more expensive than their unrefined counterparts. And it's possible that the reason this was like the centerpiece at fashionable parties was because you projected an image of wealth. Right, let's move on to the main course. As you can see, it involved a lot of meat.
I'd be so upset if I was at a ball or a dinner party and people were more focused on like showing me like how difficult or expensive the things are rather than just having tasty food.
You had pies, you had hams, you had breasts of duck, poultry. Let's check this pie out here. What have we got here? Venison. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you cannot go wrong with a pie. Delicious, dancing food. But you also get some vegetables, things like asparagus when it's in season. But meat made up a large part of the Georgian diet, even for the middle class. You got venison, game, things that could be hunted and shot. That was another way of showing off to your guests. It suggested that you had a country estate where those things could be procured, or that you'd been gifted them by some royal or aristocratic friend.
Cholera pie, the Lancet, Board of Wealth, Patient Imperial Brandy, Brett Dury Lane, Rob Crickshank, a draught of the pocket gold pills, Patience Pounded.
Or that you've been gifted them by some royal or aristocratic friend.
Seems a little, you know.
I'm getting a bit worried about Georgian gut health, to be honest.
Yeah.
But fun place to visit. Now, we come on to the most bizarrely named part of the Georgian diet. The so-called sweetbreads, which sounds nice, but in fact, they're offal. They're glands. They're drawn from the stomach. In one Jane Austen book,
Is offal just organ meat?
Heroine is offered...
Or specifically like stomach?
In one Jane Austen book, the heroine is offered a delicate fricassee of sweetbread and some asparagus.
You're brave. Brave man.
It looks like chicken. It kind of feels a bit like chicken, but it tastes like lard or kidney or something frankly pretty disgusting. I think there's something strangely poetic about Jane Austen's characters standing...
Guys, I like to think that I like all different kinds of food, and I'm definitely willing to try it. And I realize my palate is really so limited because when it comes to meat, I've only had cows. I feel like I've only had domesticated meat. Cows, pigs, chickens. The amount of cows I've eaten in my day.
Polite conversations whilst munching on testicles and ovaries.
Ah, good.
Don't know how polite I'd be if I was eating that the whole time. So, from 1815 or so onwards, you start to see a change in the way the Georgians had their dinner parties, particularly in London, which was the leader of fashion and a more formal place. Dinner parties started to be served à la Russe. That means serving food in separate courses, not just one big groaning table. Each course would be taken away and replaced with another. This method became more and more popular later in the Regency era. The Prince Regent, who would become George IV, he loved this food. And he loved a little night out as well. Now, he had a French chef called Carême.
Guys, sorry, just why are all of the portrayals of people of the time so aesthetically, so unpleasantly looking? Like, everyone just looks like
In the Regency
glutton.
Era. The Prince Regent, who would become George IV, he loved this food. And he loved a little night out as well. Now, he had a French chef called Carême, who's credited with introducing this idea à la Russe. And the upper classes always took their lead from the Prince Regent and what was most fashionable on the continent. So his method caught on amongst the nobility and gentry. From that point onwards, a formal dinner might be 2 courses followed by dessert. So we're all followers of Carême to the present day. The ultimate status symbol in the Georgian period
Pineapple.
was oddly a fruit. Pineapples could only be grown in the warm tropical weather. But aristocrats here in chilly old northern Britain decided that they wanted to show off just how much money they had, the staff, the facilities, to actually try and grow these at home. If you could have a dinner party where you served homegrown pineapples, it meant you were a wealthy guy. In 1764, the Gentleman's Magazine estimated that it cost £150 to build a hothouse, to cover the running costs, to buy the initial plant stock, and all this expense, of course, was not guaranteed to give any return. Now, if you stick that through the Bank of England's inflation calculator, that's roughly equivalent today to £22,000 in order to grow some of these. Pineapples were hot property. Maids who transported them from one house to another could be accosted by thieves. In 1807, there were several court cases for pineapple theft at the Old Bailey in London. The most notorious was Mr. Godding, who was sentenced to 7 years transportation to Australia for stealing 7 pineapples. I'll spare a thought here for the aspiring middle classes who want to get ahead, but they can't get their mitts on any pineapples, they can't afford to grow them. Well, as so often with capitalism, the market responded. Canny businessmen opened up pineapple rental shops across Britain. Companies of all different kinds cashed on the fruit's popularity. You see them engraved and carved into buildings, and the market for pineapple-themed goods exploded. Porcelain makers like Wedgwood produced pineapple-shaped, well, everything really. And the beauty of all these more durable pineapples is while the fruit rotted away, the statues and carvings would always remain to remind guests in perpetuity of just how wealthy you were. Now, the Georgians drank all sorts of wine. White wine, claret, which means wines from the Bordeaux area of France. Wine is very important in a Georgian dinner party. Hey, all dinner parties, let's be honest.
I am so unsophisticated with wine. You could hand me a Merlot, like, this is a white. The Office joke. No, maybe. But like a Merlot or a, what's another? Pinot Noir. Is that the another? Like, if it's a red wine, it's a red wine. If it's a white wine, it's a white wine. Or champagne. Is champagne a wine? I don't know.
In 1825, Mrs. Parkes wrote a book in which she talked about the kind of wines you had to serve at a dinner party. She said, the decanted wines placed on the table during dinner are white wines, either Madeira, sherry, or Bucellas. Those circulated after dinner are port, Madeira, and claret. She went on to say that claret is generally contained in a decanter with a handle.
Port wine is named port because it's from Portugal, I think. Right? I think that's actually true.
Claret. She went on to say that claret is generally contained in a decanter with a handle and of a peculiar form. It's quite a formal
Could be wrong, let me know though.
And it wasn't just the wine that was formal. There were even rules.
I gotta shut up.
It's quite a formal setup. And it wasn't just the wine that was formal. There were even rules about who you could talk to and when. You had to have conversation only with the person on your right or your left, and therefore where the hostess sat her guests was crucial. Now there were some informal dinners, a bit less rigid. You could talk across the table at those, really let your hair down, and you only drank wine with someone else. You didn't just sit there glugging it by yourself. Never clink glasses though. A lady or a gentleman would raise a glass to you and you would drink in return. A drink with you, sir. The elite of Georgian Britain lived in a world of plenty. They'd never had it so good.
Guys, this is the finest American wine you'll ever find. It is a McDonald's Coke. Very scrumptious.
Certainly not true for many other people in the world at the time. And that spirit of excess was embodied in the king, King George IV, who when he died was enormously fat and weighed 24 stone. So ungainly that it gave the undertakers a real problem with his corpse.
How many stone am I?
Thanks for dining
I'm like 90 kilo, I think. 89 kilo. How many stone is that?
with me, folks. If that video has whet your appetite, there are more delicious courses available. Simply click on any of the videos on this screen for more delicious content.
That was great. Love Dan Snow. Yeah, I'd seen this one. Yeah, love to see your guys' comments. Hope you guys are doing well. If not, chin up. You'll be good soon. Emotions are fickle, guys. Don't worry. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys. Goodbye. Why is my audio